Welcome back to episode 2 of the BarraTheWorld FG NA+T turbo conversion, where we're going to be installing some of the parts that we spoke about in the previous video onto our NA barrel. So in this episode, we're going to be dismantling the car, installing a map sensor, installing a fuel pressure reg, taking out the ECU so we can send it off to Hooten's harnesses. He's going to load up a turbo map tune for us, and we're also going to be doing some modifications to our Pulsar turbo.
Yeah, now these videos that we're going to make, they're not going to be a full in-depth nut and bolt guide of how to remove your manifold and things like that. They're just going to be a basic overview of how the parts are installed, and if we have any issues or any slight modifications need to be done, we're going to stop the video and then focus on that for a moment, and then we're going to explain why we've done this and how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get dismantling. Alrighty, just a little bit of a progress update. Manifold is finally out. So we've still got the exhaust in, and when we fit the new manifold on and get everything in position, we will take the old one out and fit the new one up at the same time. So we've also had the front bar off to get the intercooler in.
Alright guys, we're just doing the BABF map sensor install now. So obviously you can see I have taken it out. It is just one torque screw to take it out, nice and simple. All I'm going to do is, so I don't pinch the O-ring or whatever, just put a bit of silicone spray or some kind of lubricant on your finger. Just run a little bit on there. Gently work it in. She's in. Grab your torque screw. Get it started. And then just get the right get the right tool and send her home. Job's a good one. Look at that. Alright, now that we've done the map sensor, we're moving on to the fuel pressure regulator. So to speed up the process for the video, I've already undone everything, so I'll walk you through it because it's a little bit of a pain. First we undo the vac line from the booster, just nice and easy, obviously just the hose clamp, should pop off. Now at the back of the head, or the rocker cover anyway, there's two torque screws, and to get to them I like to pull out the PCV valve, sort of push it out the way, and then behind here there's two Torx bits. Undo them. Then you'll be able to undo this vac line on the inlet manifold. Pull that off, get that out of the way. Now, this loom's clipped in normally, so you can just get a screwdriver in there and pry it out, like this little clip in there to push in, and then that'll pop out. And then now, there is another cable tie at the back, which unfortunately mine was already broken, so I couldn't show you how to undo it, but you should be able to work that out pretty easily. And then you can just manipulate that out of the way. So that's out of your way. And then, like I said, I've already pulled the vac line off, so you gotta get to your regulator. Now, there's two types of clips that hold the regulator in. There's a circlip, which we have right here, and then there's like a split pin style. So I've got a pair of circlip pliers with a 90-degree end on them. So I can move things out the way. And it's a bit of a pain because I can't see. You can get it out, just like that. And to get the fuel pressure reg out, all you got to do, give it a bit of a twist, she comes out. Just make sure that the O-ring has come out, which this one hasn't, so just take note of that.
Cool, so if we come over to our spare motor we have sitting here, just a bit better of a view. This is the bracket that is held in on the two bolts at the back here of the rock cover. And there's your fuel pressure reg underneath here. So you can see a little circlet there that you undid.
Alright, here's the Herko 4 bar. What I like to do when I install these is I like to take the O-ring off. It just peels off like that. And I like to get just a little bit of lube, which I'm just using some silicone spray, just a little bit so nothing pinches. And what I like to do is just fit it first. So you can just push it in there, get it in the seat. Then same deal here, just a little bit of lube on there. Lube that up, just so it's nice and lubricated. And then you can just twist it in and it will seat. And then obviously reverse the process and put the circlip in and you're good to go. All right, so now that the fuel pressure regulator is done, I'm going to remove the ECU because this one's going to go get reflashed from Bill Hooten at Hooten Harnesses. So because the engine actually has been replaced before, they would have changed the ECU. Now to do that, we're lucky enough that this has already been done. You can either, if you're feeling a little bit surgical, grab a grinder with a cutting disc and actually put in a couple slots so you can mimic sort of a screwdriver with a flat head and you can sort of undo them. If you're not feeling real confident putting a grinder near your computer, you can use like a hacksaw blade and you can slowly work it and then sort of make your flat blade. So what you gotta do, once you got that in there, is undo these. Okay, now that you've exposed the wire plugs on the ECU, they're pretty much just on like a lever. You can just pull them down. And she's out.
All right, so Chris is just chucking in some manifold studs. Put a little bit of nickel paste on each one of these studs if it wants to focus. Just makes it easier to get in and stop binding, and if we ever need to take it out, they shouldn't be seized up.
I've just pulled apart the Pulsar turbo. All I've done is take off the front and rear housing. We'll start off with the modifications to the front housing. We need to be able to give the wastegate a reference from somewhere to be able to regulate boost. You can take it from places on the manifold that give, you know, vacuum or positive charge. You could put them in the charge pipes. It's really up to you, but purely for aesthetics, we have gone to put it into the compressor housing. I've drilled and tapped and put a 1/8 90-degree fitting in it with a 6mm barb. This hose is going to run along here, underneath, and your wastegate is going to be about here. So it's going to be all nice and hidden. The next modification that we've done to the turbo is on the rear housing. Pulsar have recommended that you take a die grinder and you clean up the casting on the wastegate port. And by clean up, all they mean is take off the sharp edges. From factory, the castings are quite square. So all I've done is take a die grinder and basically put a bit of a radius and smooth off all this side. The reason why you want to do that is because as the exhaust gas comes in, if it's not radiused, it will create a lot of turbulence and it can cause boost spike. When you're actually cleaning it up, you want to be very careful not to hit these faces here because that's what the wastegate actually seals on.
Thought we'll get a bit of a close-up of the porting or the smoothing that we've done. So as you can see, that inside edge on the wastegate flapper side, you can just see it's just smoothed out and will flow a lot better. So if we come to the other side, you can just see basically how sharp and square it was. So that's the difference.
just finished assembling the Pulsar turbo. As you can see, this is the finished product of the wastegate and the line. Runs under here. The intake pipe is going to run up this way, so a lot of this is going to be hidden. I think it's going to look quite nice. I'll move on to the rear housing now. The rear housing is going to be in its fixed position. It's determined by the manifold and how it bolts up. So the next bit is the core itself. I have rotated it in towards the motor a little bit. The reason for doing that is I wanted the drain port to have a little bit extra clearance on the engine mount bracket. That's really it. Now moving on to the compressor housing. Originally it needed to be rotated quite a little bit, so I've just undone those bolts. I mocked it up in the car, worked out where it needed to be, and pinned it. The biggest issue I found was the wastegate was actually on the other side. Because the exhaust housing is in a fixed position, you need to move it across to the other side. The wastegate itself comes with a couple mount holes. Originally it was using the larger one. I'll just flip it this way so you can see it a bit better. Yeah, that's probably as good as we're going to get. There is another hole there. Originally it was using that one. When you swap it over, you will have to use the smaller one. You'll notice as soon as you do it, you can't really stuff it up. If you want to use a very similar setup to us as a good guideline, if you've rotated that a little bit and sort of mocked it up in the car, we've noticed that the center line of your oil feed does line up with this bolt right here. Hopefully that's going to be a bit of insight for you, and you can just sort of roughly get it in place and then chuck it in the car and just fine tune it.
All right, well that wraps up episode 2. On the next episode, we're going to be mocking the turbo in the car and working on the oil and water lines. We're also going to be installing the fuel pump.
Now we're going to keep these episodes short and sweet, mainly because it makes it easier for us to edit, which means it's going to be quicker, which means we can get them on YouTube quicker, which then in turn means you guys get to see the conversion a lot quicker.
Exactly. So make sure you guys like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.